We're here to do today is to ask the council to hold a public hearing to amend the FY 2016 appropriation ordinance, which was passed by this council on August 17th, 2015, which served as the basis for our fiscal year 2016 budget. As you know, it's an appropriation ordinance. What we strive to do is to estimate as accurately as possible the revenues and expenses that we expect the city will receive and which it will expend in any particular year. By state law, the appropriation ordinance should be as accurate as possible. And so if there are unforeseen things that happen during the ensuing budget year, if they are significant enough, meaning if they raise an appropriation level in a certain fund, or they're an expenditure from a fund that had not been anticipated, then we ask the council to reopen the budget to amend the appropriation ordinance. Though that happened in 3 different cases this year, that doesn't mean that every line item in the FY16 budget was exact. We have, for instance, you may have a office supplies line item that you might have $3,000 in that you might only expend $2,500. That does not require reopening the budget. You might expend $3,500, but that extra $500 would not dictate that you reopen the budget if you have underspending in some other line items. So it's very fund limited, I guess, or specific. So in this case, we had 3 different funds that were affected. The first is the general fund. In the general fund, we're asking that the council hold a public hearing and amend the appropriation ordinance to allow us to expend $25,000 that had not been anticipated when we originally passed the appropriation ordinance. That $25,000 was for smart transit. This was something that was granted last year in the FY 2015 budget in a total appropriation of $145,000. $120,000 was for operational expenses, and $25,000 was for the purchase match for the purpose of a bus that SMART had received an FTA grant. It was one of those things where you're caught between budget years. The bus had been ordered. The grant funds had not yet been accessed, so the match funds were not expended prior to October 1st of 2015. So those funds were carried over. The bus had already been ordered. The grant was already pending, so we needed to carry that money over. However, because the appropriation ordinance did not anticipate it, we're asking the council amend that to increase that by $25,000. The Culture and Recreation Fund, this was one that had to do with the Moscow School District community playfields. We had anticipated that all construction would be completed by September 30th, 2015, which in fact was not, as you know. There were some things that went over to the tune of approximately $80,000. Those funds, again, were included in the FY 2015 budget, but were carried over. In other words, we needed those funds in order to finish out the agreement that we had with Moscow School District. So we're asking that the council adjust that fund by the amount of $80,000. Again, it does not, we're not receiving new funds. We're just allocating funds between budget years. Those funds were always there, but we needed to carry those over. Last, the Information Systems Fund was one that we are requesting that the council open up to receive new funds and expenditures, and that is in the amount of $44,444. You'll recall that this was a FEMA grant that was received in favor of the, or to the benefit of the Moscow Fire Department for the purchase of thermal imaging cameras and other emergency equipment. So we received the grant, and now we're asking the council amend the budget to receive the grant and authorize its expenditure. So with that, I'd answer any questions. I'm sure Sarah would be happy to answer anything as well, and then request that the mayor open up the public hearing, and we ask that you amend the ordinance.
The proposed total amount of the appropriation is $149,444.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Walter?
Thank you, Mayor. Gary, this is something I just this moment saw. In the packet, there is an accounting for the changes you just talked about.
Yes.
And at the top of the listings, it says FY 2015 twice. Should that not be 2016?
No, it was the FY 2015 budget that originally held the $25,000 for smart transit. That money was in fact expended for the match in 2016. It wasn't expended by September 30th of 2015, so we had to carry it over into the FY 16 budget.
I understand, but the budget that's being amended is the 2016, correct?
Yes. So, what part of the memo are you
The
looking
top
at?
of it, Gary, says 2015 original budget, and then the final budget for 2015. It doesn't mention 2016 on the paper
Here you go, Gary.
that Walter's talking about. I'm guessing it was a,
I understand,
Yes.
I understand the numbers, I understand
Yeah,
the
what you-
years. I'm questioning the,
Yeah, what you have is you have the public hearing. We had made a mistake, and we sent that to the paper. We caught it almost immediately, resent it to the paper. You happened to get the old copy. So in the paper, it did say the 2016 budget. I apologize for that mistake. But it's been corrected, and the ordinance is correct.
Other questions for Gary before I open? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing for anybody that would like to testify with any testimony for, against, neutral, or anything you'd like to talk about to deal with this budget. Seeing nobody rush the podium to speak about this, I will close the public hearing and let council go forward with this.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
I would move to approve the ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and it be read by title and published by summary.
second.
Further discussion before I take a roll. Okay, I've got a motion by Jim and a second by John to approve the amendment of the 2016 budget ordinance under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and it be read by title and published by summary. And we'll start the roll with John.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye.
Okay, that is done. And that public hearing is closed. We'll move on to the next thing, which will be Rod South. Oh, sorry about that. I got an ordinance to read.
Yes, sir.
Forgot about that.
I was in the middle of drinking my water.
We have ordinance number 2016-12. Is that correct? 2016-12, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, amending ordinance number 2015-13, the appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2015, and ending September 30th, 2016, to appropriate monies in the sum of $64,048,978, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law.